Hey, the Say Destiny crew, Spyrides here. Thanks for joining me for another The Say Destiny conversation. Today we have got a gentleman across the pond and around the world, Sam Led himself. We finally connected. We missed each other a few times and then it dropped out just before, but it's meant to be.
It's divine timing, my friend. Divine timing. Exactly. You're like next door, but you're like, what, 10,000 miles away? I'm here in Santa Barbara and you're in gorgeous East Coast of Australia.
Oh, West Coast, the wild West Coast.
Oh, you're in that one city that is far from everything. Perth.
Literally.
Perth, right. I had a friend, very good friend.
Most isolated city in the world.
But gorgeous.
Yes.
Beautiful.
Well, but we connected, and I think we're closer in energy and what we're doing.
Totally.
You know. So folks, Sam Led is a no nonsense mindset and transformation coach. He's a speaker and a powerful group facilitator. And he is the voice behind the Fearless Now podcast, which I absolutely love the name of. And he also believes that he is more of a guide than a coach, which I also love. And I think, you know, you're a guide, and I also love I heard someone recently talk about that they are a facilitator, they're a dream facilitator, which I really love. So yeah, welcome, Sam.
Thank you. That's well said for 6 a.m. You did it.
Yes.
Yeah, I can't function before caffeine, so you did a great job.
No worries.
Thank you for having me on this. You know, I love your work. I love what you're doing, and it's so heart-centered. And besides, you know, being a gifted photographer, you know, your work is profound. So thank you for allowing me to spend the 30 minutes or so with you on this deep dive. No
worries, mate. Thank you, and thank you for reaching out, connecting, and do you do that quite a bit? Do you kind of see people that you resonate with online and
yes.
reach out to them direct? Yeah.
Yes, it's interesting. It's energy is everything, and I think that we ignore the fact that we can intuitively pick up energy that we resonate with, that we powwow with, that there's synergy with, and that's even on Zoom, even on Facebook, it's all possible.
Exactly. Yeah, 100%. Yeah, it's possible at that next level, and you kind of, when you move beyond the physical, you kind of get something that resonates.
And there's science behind it. There's science behind it, because even scientists say there's an intelligence behind life that's guiding us. Yeah. You know, I use a lot of surfing metaphors because, you know,
yes,
I love the water.
Beautiful.
And I also use something happened to me 2 days ago. If I could share briefly with you and your audience, that we'll kind of meld everything together, which is the story is a good metaphor. So a couple of days ago, I was paddling out. I was going out early swim, and I didn't know there were rip currents. I don't know if you're familiar with rip currents.
Yep. Yeah.
They really can test your
suck you out.
It's a vacuum cleaner. So I wasn't paying attention. I was just like so excited. It was like 6 a.m, early in the morning, and I'm not a morning person. I can barely see straight. That's why I applaud you so much for waking up so early. Thank you. I jump in the water, and to be in the water for me, just the salt water hitting my feet, it gets me, you know, it gets me present, and it's also very cleansing, and it's my favorite thing in the whole world. So I started swimming. I started going out, and all of a sudden I see this whirlpool. It's like a very small whirlpool, and then the sets keep coming in one after the other. Like every 2 seconds there's another set, and I'm looking. It doesn't look right to me, and all of a sudden it's like I'm being sucked by a vacuum cleaner out to sea. And but okay, so here's the interesting thing. And this happens to all of us. We don't pay attention to it enough because we're caught up in the machinery right here.
Yes,
we're caught up in this Las Vegas fireworks, you know, loud noise that we think is truth, which is 100% not truth. It's 100%. The greatest used car salesman is the brain. Yes. Thought is completely illusory, and so my great example of this is, so I'm being pulled out to sea, and I didn't panic, which is so surprising. I didn't panic at all. I didn't even think about anything. I just turned my body and swam diagonal back to shore and I was able to get out of the rip current.
Yeah.
That's intelligence, which means that thought doesn't get us success. Thought doesn't get us love. Thought doesn't get us a good surfing experience or a great a big bank account. We do our best work when we are tapped into our intelligence, this inner wisdom that we all have beneath the noise of thought. But we've been taught the opposite. We've been conditioned to learn that actually our circumstances outside of us are influencing how we feel, which is completely false. And that's very innocent that we see it that way, whereas it's inside out, that we're actually not living in a world of circumstance, but we're living in a world of thought 100% of the time. I
agree with you 100%.
Totally, yeah. So
I love that story. I agree 100%. That's
I'm here today not because of my brain, my intellect, but because of something beneath all that in the moment got me present without even realizing it. And I swam to shore. It's kind of like, think about it this way. If you ever if you look at across your room and you want to kind of like zoom into your, the switch to turn on your kitchen, your closet light or whatever you're looking at, you can literally zoom into that in a moment, in a split second. That's intelligence. It's doing it automatically, like gravity. Yeah. Gravity's automatic. So I thought that was that was a cool jumping off point.
Yeah, definitely. It's and I think there's so much deep within us that we haven't tapped in. There's so much deep inside of us, and there's so much historically, like our brain from ancestors and ancestors. So much programming, like you said, and conditioning that happens. But then there is so much power within us if we just tap into it. We tap into that present moment. I mean, I've got a story with a friend who I'm writing this book, Decide Your Destiny, and she's writing her book, and it's actually, we're both the same age and we're very similar. It's different books, but similar sort of reason behind the book. And it's so funny. I don't know where and how we connected. She reckons that we connected through, she was wanting to see if I could photograph an event, but I don't even recall. Like, I just know that somehow we came together and we've created this great friendship where we support each other and we've helped each other through. And when she's been ahead with the book and I've been, a bit too busy or stagnant, she kind of says something and that pulls me up. Then I pull her up, and it's kind of like that connection.
And you don't have to think about it. And so if where we all have our human frailties, where we all kind of have this human experience and this spiritual experience, and I kind of try to turn the word spirit, because a lot of people get oh, that's woo, that's tarot cards and chakras, it's how the system works. If I were going to put it in very plain Jane terms, is that scientists, people that study this, neurologists, people that study the brain, know that there's something outside of thought and thinking that's guiding us. Okay, and what happens is that from birth onward, we have this brain that's a tape recorder that has a set of equipment that hasn't had a software update since the Paleolithic era. So we're dealing with old equipment that is ready to run or to kill if we're being chased by a saber-tooth tiger, right? Yeah. It's the same equipment that caveman had, but like the caveman over the generations and thousands of years, our brain has been this tape recorder that's been tape recording stuff, and we think the tape recording is true, and it's 100% false. When we stop believing in the content of when our state of mind is kind of crappy, when we're in a bad mood, we all get in a bad mood, innocently, it has nothing to do with anything, our outside world, even though our brain is telling us differently, oh, you're feeling crappy because you don't feel well, or because you don't have enough money in your bank account, or whatever it is, your girlfriend broke up with you, or pick your favorite human drama. Our brain wants to keep us safe. So what does it do? It has to find something outside of us, because during caveman times, that's what it did, right? Brain's going to do what a brain's going to do. But us, me, you, Kyle, the whole collective, underneath thought is love, is well-being, is expansiveness, is we make our right decisions underneath the noise. When we don't take our thinking seriously, when we're going, sorry, that's my phone. When we're in a bad mood, or our state of mind is kind of upside down, it's so liberating, because we know that thought's made up, we know it's an illusion, but it feels real. That's where we kind of get wrapped up in it, right? Like, your girlfriend breaks up with you, you feel depressed, and there's a grieving process, or it's not fun to have no money in the bank account. But the more we get some distance from thought and thinking, and we start pointing back to who we really are, not the machine, right? Not the synapsing going on, but who we really are, which all of us underneath thought. Some of us are bank robbers. Their core, who they are, is loving and caring. We all have the ability to tap into that, and we do all the time. We just don't pay attention to it enough, because it's not Las Vegas. It's not lights. It's not noise. It's very calm. It's quiet. And if we can trust in the quiet, it's like, that's the reason I'm talking to you right now. Like, if you asked me like 5 years ago, I would do a podcast, or I would, write a book, I'd be like, you're crazy. No way. But after really seeing how my life was unfolding, like all of our lives unfold, when we trust that there's something underneath us, inside of us, in each of us, that's guiding us, that has our back, intuition, no matter what. Just like my example with almost drowning in the ocean, I had it. I didn't panic. I had it. There was some intelligence saying, swim diagonally. You can't explain that. I mean, I've never been in a rip current before. That was my first time. I didn't even, so there's something behind that. Like your photography. That beautiful photograph behind you, that didn't come about because you were like, well, let's see, the depth of field. I mean, no, it came from soul, came from consciousness. Yeah. Okay. That's all I have to say. No, I'm kidding.
I mean, that was going to be my question, was what does being underneath the noise of thought mean to you? And I guess that's what it means. It means that kind of, that intuition, that connection.
It's kind of like in some researchers that study brain science or consciousness, it's like the flow state. There's some great research on flow state. If you just Google it. It's where it's kind of a weird feeling of calm. You just feel good for no reason. And when I always tell my clients and people, look for a feel-good feeling, even if you have cancer, even if you just got into a car accident and you're dealing with the adrenaline, we are not equipped to be a slave to our thinking all the time. That's why our brain bounces around all the time. Like, our brain loves us, but it's tired, especially after this pandemic. It's tired. And when we see that who and what we are is underneath our thinking, we can then, when our brain starts going a little nutty and starts getting caught up and zooming in on the problem, like, I was diagnosed with ADHD and a little bit of OCD many years ago. I could have got caught up in that diagnosis, I could have overthought that diagnosis, but that's thought too.
The label,
that's thought too,
Yeah.
And so when we point to those moments where we can't explain it, where, like, for example, me being able to swim out of a rip current without knowing I was in a rip current until I was caught in the rip current, never being in a rip current before, there was this inner intelligence beneath the noise. If I relied on what was going on in my mind at the time, I probably would have drowned. I mean, honestly, like car accidents, near-miss accidents, same thing. Hitting, we've all experienced that. We've also experienced that feeling like love, like, oh, she's the one. When I fell in love with my partner, it was like that feeling. It wasn't like fireworks and, so, yeah.
I've been listening to the book called The One Thing, or That One Thing, and there was actually a great part of a chapter that I was listening to just before we got on. And I was talking about multitasking, and I was saying how we think we can multitask, but we can't. Like, if we're actually going to put conscious, like, we can focus on one thing at one time. And it was talking about where the word multitasking came from. It came from the development of a new generation of computer, and because the computer could do multiple things at once, but it wasn't actually. It was focusing on one thing while other tasks were being done in the background. So it was going back and.
Ground control to Kyle.
You're frozen. There we go. But yeah, the book was very, very interesting because it was talking about that multitasking and saying back in it, like when you talked about the saber-tooth times, we would have to be constantly looking out, because danger was that ever threat, that consistent threat. And that multitasking, I mean, I looked at it when I was listening to the book before. I was looking at it like, okay, I'm doing multiple things, but now through our conversation, it's even that thought, and that thought can get you into a stage of overwhelm, of anxiety, and it can actually lead you towards danger. And a lot of times in our world, that's reasonably safe without, for most of us, tigers jumping at our neck every day. Although there are other things and people jumping at our neck, I'm sure, online.
And viruses.
Yes. Yeah.
Viruses jumping down.
Yeah. And the like.
Lions, tigers, bears, and COVID. Oh my. Okay, sorry. Yeah. That's bad. That was a bad joke. Go ahead.
All washed up in one. No. Yeah. Look, nothing's off limit here on this podcast. But yeah, no, I think that the mind can lead you, and there's a great philosophical quote. I listen to a lot of stoicism, and especially since 2020 onwards, I listen and I read a lot more, of philosophy and stoicism, and obviously there's many greats out there. People always talk about Marcus Aurelius, but Epictetus is a brilliant one, and Seneca, and all these different people. But one quote that I do remember, it was saying that we often suffer a lot more in the mind than we do in reality. And I think that quote is so relevant in today's day.
If we see that, let me reframe that. We 100% suffer in our thinking when it feels heavy, depressing, anxious. And again, once we see we're never going to win the game of thought thinking, we're never going to win. We're bucking up against our own conditioning, and conditioning is 100. I don't know if I'm allowed to use profanities, but it's 100% malarkey, 100% bullshit, all of it. Yeah. Now look, we got to pay taxes. You got to pay your bills. I got to pay my bills. But when it comes to being successful in this world, you look at all the great success stories, rags to riches stories, riches to more riches stories, and so on and so on. They got there because they saw what I'm pointing to. Remember the movie The Secret? With what's his name? It's a brilliant movie. It's exactly the same thing. The secret is that state that we all jump into all the time. We just don't pay attention to it enough. And we're also, when we walk around the earth, we're in a walking meditation. But we just don't see it because we're looking in the wrong direction. We're looking up to the noise for answers. The noise can never give us answers. Now, listen, the brain is good at a lot of things. Nah, maybe not. It's good at some things. It's good at modulating organ systems. It's great at equations. It's good at keeping you alive. But understand this. Things that we take for granted, like a lot of stuff, like gravity, the sun coming up. There's an intelligence there too. And we're all part of it. And we all see it. But we just get caught up in the noise. And there's a great podcast, one of my colleagues, he's a wonderful coach, it's called Under the Noise. It's so profound, and it's not enlightenment. There's no such thing as enlightenment, because we're enlightened every day. We just don't pay attention. Like, you don't need to go to India, right? You don't need to go to Bali. I love Bali. You don't need to climb to the temples, or So it's like,
you don't need something outside of you.
Exactly. There's a great scene, an old movie called Collateral. You remember the movie Collateral?
I know of it, but yeah.
Okay, so it's
Describe it to me.
Tom Cruise and the funny comedian, African American guy. Well, I forgot his name, but he's a taxi driver in
Eddie Murphy?
No, it wasn't Eddie Murphy. It was another brilliant comedian. He was in the not a documentary. He played, what's his name? The singer, the blind singer. Anyways, doesn't matter.
Oh, Ray Charles. Okay, yeah.
Yeah, Ray Charles. Yeah, that guy. We'll probably at the end of the pocket tomorrow. You'll text me and I'll be like, yeah, that's it. There's a scene when he's a cab driver, and this is before the movie kind of unfolds, where he's kidnapped by this crazy professional killer named Tom Cruise, and he's sitting in his cab, right at the gas station, at the gas pump, and every day is probably the same. You get stuck on the freeway, traffic, Jamie Foxx. There you go, brother. Well, I don't know.
I'm American.
It's so early, and it's early as hell in the morning, and you're not American, so I get 2 demerits,
No, good.
So he's sitting in his cab, and right before he starts his shift, and he pulls down his visor, like his sun visor, and you know where there's in the sun visor you can put like index cards and pens and stuff. There's like a little clip. Well, he has a picture of a deserted of a tropical beach, an island with beautiful ocean. He's just staring at it, and he gets lost in it. Cue the music. Cue whatever music is playing. But that's kind of what it is. We don't have to, we don't have to go to Shangri-La. There's no looking for nirvana, and that's why monks and people that get really quiet all the time see it all the time, and that's why they don't leave the monastery. Now, I'm not saying go to a monastery and be quiet and righteous and holy. You can be a monk half an hour a day, 15 minutes a day, whether you meditate or not, because you go into that state naturally. Just like thought settling. Like another good example. I don't know if you have nieces and nephews.
Yes, I've actually got a nephew in Utah.
Beautiful state, gorgeous state.
Yeah.
Have you been?
Yeah. No, I haven't, but my sister sends me photos of Salt Lake City, and I definitely want to go.
It's gorgeous. You got to go to Zion and the Arches. Anyways, I have a niece and nephew. One is 5 and the other one's 8. And my nephew will have a temper tantrum, and it's like fire and brimstone. It's like the world's coming to an end. It's like the ultimate hissy fit. Within 10 minutes, it's like it never happened. And he's happy and curious and smiling and just in love with the world. It's very present. And, kids are the most present. They're wiser than we are because we're contaminated more by our memories and our conditioning. So 100%. If kids see it and we see kids doing it, imagine what adults can do with this very powerful supercomputer between our ears if we pay attention more. The issue is we got to unwrap some of that conditioning, and it just takes one thought. But society has said, well, no, you need to go to a therapist and talk about your traumas and that's all well said and good. And listen, if it works for you, I never see, if someone's doing something that's helpful and it's working for them, go with God. Do your own research on this. But what I ask of people out there is get really curious about thought, because you'll see what I'm pointing to, and if you do see it more, the noise won't be as debilitating. They've used this understanding of how the system, how mind works, that there's this intelligence behind life, and they've worked with prisoners and maximum security penitentiaries. They've used it in state psychiatric hospitals with folks that are suffering from mental health issues, like bipolar disorder, schizophrenia, and so they've helped see what I'm pointing to. And there was a psychiatrist, his name is Dr. Bill Pettit, brilliant psychiatrist who basically gave up psychiatry to share this understanding, and he's had clients with schizophrenia within a couple of weeks are fine because the voices they see are made up, and even when they're loud, they're made up. Right. It's
disarming those things bit by bit. I think one thing I've noticed in my personal life is when you are present. And one thing that I really enjoy is when I'm in a social setting around other people, and because of, I think it's from photography. I think that's where it comes from. But you know, I'm in a few networks, and I run this, like I run a few different groups, and just kind of seeing someone, and you know, they've got that kind of that cat eye fear in their eyes, and they got that stance, and you know, it's kind of yeah, and you know, when you kind of see someone in a network event or something like that, that's usually the approach. But being able to disarm someone, it's such an important thing in photography, to be able to actually get photographs, you know, whether it's, you know, portraits, which I love doing, portraits of family, you know, and later today I'm actually taking photographs of a business owner in a big company, and you know, in these big factories. Anywhere I go, no matter if it's CEO or my younger cousin, being able to disarm that person is such a important, I think, skill to learn. And you can disarm with self-deprecating humor. You can disarm with, you know, which is a favorite of mine. You know, you can disarm.
Yeah, in the same way. I mean, and that's so brilliant what you said there. Is that, you know, when you think of, like, imagine like some of your clients or customers, clients, you know, people that hire you for your work. It's kind of like they're in their snow globe. You know what a snow globe is? I've heard this is. We all steal. Yeah, coaches. Like, we all steal from each other. We all plagiarize from each other because, you know, Shakespeare did. So I guess I got another great metaphor. You're gonna love this metaphor. It's snow globe. You shake the snow globe up. You know, in the snow. Well, that's kind of like thought and thinking. All that stuff in that snow globe will settle to the bottom of the globe, right? Yes. It eventually will, if we let it settle. Yeah. And people like the deer in the headlights, they've been conditioned because for whatever reason, they start believing they're thinking, like we all do sometimes. Like I forget all the time too. Yeah. But when we stop beating ourselves up for forgetting who we really are underneath thought, right? And we stop beating other people up for being very human, and allow people to have their humanness and their frailties, man, the implications are incredible. And if this gentleman, Dr. Bill Pettit, can go into a psychiatric hospital within, you know, weeks, have his patients see what I've been speaking of, and they get better, and they're not, you know, caught up and stuck in a hospital anymore, and they're actually living their life, living in the world again, then something is up. Something is up. That's why I say get curious. And the something up part, I'm not going to get into conspiracy theory. Yes, is that actually, this is actually a book. It's called What They Didn't Tell Us. It's a book by Jack Pransky. I don't know if you've seen it. Okay. It's an old book.
No, I'll check it out.
It's called What They. Yeah. So it's about what I'm pointing to. Like, we didn't learn this in school, like how the mind works. We learned the anatomy of the mind and how the biology of the mind, but we actually. In terms of, like, as we were conditioned with whatever Judeo-Christian beliefs or Muslim or whatever you were born with, or family you were born into. But besides that, you know, English common law and you know, and you got to do this, and this in order to get this kind of thing. Yes,
you mentioned a word there that I think such a powerful word in today's day. Like you said, like, it's not conspiracy theory. And I want to mention this word because I think
I want to be PC.
Well, no.
I don't know if that's possible in this day and age, but because everyone's angry with everybody. No virtual signaling on this program.
Well, that's the thing. I think, you know, whether it's back in history, like Salem witch trials, you know, or whatever the situation is. I mean, I look at it like, because I had this conversation with someone, and I think they were saying, like, I can't stand these. You know, conspiracy theorists, and I said, "Oh, okay. Like, you know, what's going on? What's happening?" And they started, like, unraveling and talking, and I said, "Okay, so, you know, what are they actually doing? What's upsetting you?" And they said, "Oh, they've got these ideas about that. They've got these ideas about this," and I'm like, "So they're just people that have different ideas that, you know, that are coming to different conclusions, or they're questioning things, or they're thinking in a different way to you. Like, is that what it is?" So I went, okay, so label, like whatever the label is, and you can use that word, which is a very heavy word today, or you can use any other word. And it could be, this is the word I'm calling you, you know, which, you know, because I don't understand you. I don't agree with the way that you're thinking, and I disconnect with you, and I don't align with you. And that's where
the brain loves to do that stuff. It's the brain. The brain loves to compartmentalize and judge innocently
and label.
It's never personal, and that's where we were never taught. Thought is not personal. Even if someone's screaming at you and calling you a jerk and telling you to F off and etc. It's never personal. But we
weaponize. People take it personally.
People take it personal because they're looking at things backwards. Like ideas. Ideas turn into into it can turn into something bigger. Look what happened, in Nazi Germany. Okay, all right. But if the people that were listening to Hitler, just a terrible example, we're going dark, ladies and gentlemen. If people saw Hitler as a whole bunch of thought too, and didn't take it personal, and then there would be no people going and following him, right? There'd be another guy, but maybe he would be nice, and he would be into equality,
individuality,
whatever it is. It doesn't matter. But see, if I always say, if you want to live, I want to live a happy, good life. Now, life's a contact sport, right? I gotta fix my mic. You would like this mic? It's made in Australia. It's a Rode mic.
I got one too.
Yeah. So I'm a kind of, but you're a real. I'm a poser.
Mike, cheers.
Oh, that's a cool one. That's the desktop one. Yeah. This one is. Yeah. So, we weaponize thought, but we also see that thought means absolutely nothing. Thought is a gift. Thought is a tool. It's a technology, but sometimes we use the equipment wrong. And again, the great example is me and the rip currents. If I actually listened to the noise in my mind when I'm stuck out at sea, I probably wouldn't be here talking to you. Or maybe I would have, but it would have been a lot harder to get out to find my way back to the beach. And that's the thing. You can rely on intellect 24 hours a day, fine, but it's going to be a lot more exhausting to do the things you want to do and create the things you want to do, because creation happens beneath our thinking, and I don't know why, and you don't know why, we don't know why, and that's where it gets lost in translation, because people think it has to be objective. It's not science. Well, so where do you think science comes from?
Science is developing. Science is never. That's a funny argument, because like science is not set in stone. The whole point of science is to come to new hypotheses, to experiment, to learn something new, to trial. It's something that is changing, just as, like you said, we're changing. Our world's changing. Our environments are changing. The way we interact is changing. People work from home now. Everything's changing. And so is science. Science is a developing thing. And like you said, there's a lot more science that's coming out with spirituality and with heart resonance and connection and all these different things, and picking up on different frequencies that 10 years ago, 5 years ago, you were put into the woo-woo crazy box, because
and I think what happens, woo sells.
Exactly. And I mean, my heart goes out to anybody who's been put in those boxes. And one thing I'd say is, like you said, it's not personal. It's what it is. And if you go out in your day, how many visual elements are you seeing? How many words are you hearing? How much information is being downloaded into your system? And like you said, it's a prehistoric system, and we are filtering out a lot. So when people see something that's so they go, okay, this is my mind. This is how I live. If I go here and I do these 5 things and I believe in these 3 things, then I get this thing at the end of the day, and then I get this little reward. So they go through their sort of day like that. But then if someone comes in like a hurricane with a totally different thing and go, wow, do you know we were conditioned at school, or we were never taught this, or do you know that it could, this could all be a computer simulation game, and we could, that person will freak the F out, because they'll go, right, no, that doesn't work in my reality.
But the funny thing is that every single person walking on this planet, whether you live in poverty or Shacktown Shack or mansion in Beverly Hills, which I stole as a lyric from a Talking Heads song, by the way.
Yes. Yep.
You know the song I'm talking about?
Yep.
Same as it ever. Okay. The interesting thing is we language our way through life, thinking that thought that's connected to words and turns into sentences. Hopefully, some people speak and run on sentences, and I speak and run on sentences sometimes. Is somehow has real, power. Now, it can, if a world leader is going up on stage and saying a whole bunch of words, that can influence and impact. But when you really think about it, does it really? We as a society, we've used the equipment wrong for so long that we've forgotten who we are. And again, I'm not going into COVID war stuff, blah blah blah. I'm talking about we are designed to be loving. We are designed to have connections, like you and I.
Yeah.
I mean, I've never met
social contact, community.
Social contact. We're designed to have compassion for others. Now you can say, well, what about people that have psychopathy? Well, those folks have a different kind of neurotype, and thankfully not a lot of people have that, because psychopathy, which is lack of a conscience, sociopathy. Okay. But for the most part, all of us go back home to the world of the formless every single day, many times a day, whether we're sitting in our cubicle and we're just drinking our kombucha or whatever you're drinking, we're driving home from work, and you just settle in, you just feel good for no reason. Life outside of you could be complete shit. Like, you could be overweight, your dog died and your wife just left you, but you still could feel good for no reason. Like, how do you
under the noise, like you said. Under the noise.
So we go in and out of the noise. Like, it's like we have remember we tried to connect a couple times and it kept, that's how thought and thinking works. Like, we get wrapped up around the axle and get caught up when our state of mind, when our thinking's just going sideways for no reason. We can wake up in a bad mood. We all do. Or we've attributed our bad mood to our partners or a dog who crapped in the house or whatever it is. Once we see and get curious, like, how is that possible? Like, you can wake up in a great mood for no reason and in a bad mood for no reason, and still have a sick dog, and still your wife's, you're separated from your wife and your kids are not talking to you. I'm just giving an example.
Yeah.
So thought is independent of our outside circumstances. Our outside circumstances are neutral. We've placed labels on it because we think that somehow that's true. But when we see the content of our thinking in that moment, when we're really caught up, is completely bullshit, and see the number the brain is playing on us innocently because it has an old set of equipment, we can then point less to the feeling of overwhelm or anxiety and more to the feeling of calm and quiet that we all experience. You don't need a modality because the system settles on its own 100% of the time. Right? I mean, I just pointed back to my niece and nephew. I mean, they settle, then they're pissed off, then they have another temper tantrum. It's like, we do that too.
Yeah, so many adults do that. I think I look at it as alignment. Like, I look, like your heart and soul in alignment. And I think, the thought or the mind is all about dissection. And like you said, and with us not connecting and not finding the way that you can evolve and train your mind is, I could have gone in, or you could have gone in, both of us could have gone in, what's the deal, of Kyle, what's the deal of Sam, why isn't this working?
Right.
We could have gone into that. I just went, my whole mind was just, and my whole mind was just focused on, all right, let's keep doing this until we connect.
Yeah, because we're definitely, see, that's the thing. So, we have this made up thing called ego. Again, made up by the greatest used car salesman, the greatest screenwriter, which is our brain.
Yeah.
I mean, our brain should win honorary Academy Awards every year for greatest, dramatic screenplay. And if you talk to totally right, like if you talk to Stephen King, or you talk to some of your favorite writers or your favorite screenplay guy, or you watch your favorite movie, folks like Stephen King and John Grisham and whoever else you like, Hemingway's my favorite. He was able to take the noise, the drama, and put it on paper.
Yeah.
And that's all they did. right?
Huge. Yeah.
But there's only one Hemingway, and there's only one Stephen King, and there's only one Kyle, and there's only one Sam. When we see that we are creating our own mental barriers, like for example, I really wanted to learn German, but part of me was, the voice in my head was saying it's too hard. You don't have the time for it. Why do you want to learn German? It's a tough language to speak, and all this stuff. I just like it. I don't know. But then when I looked at it as, what if I looked at it as going to be fun and easy versus my brain, my very helicopter parent-like brain saying, no. You don't have time for that. You need to focus on this because this box over here is really important. And in photography, it's the same thing. Like,
I had that with photography. It's so funny that you connect that, because I had that. My whole family was saying, which is funny, because my uncle was a highly successful photographer. So we had the example.
In the blood.
Yeah, we had the example. It wasn't actually in the blood, but that's another story. Because I've got in the family, but sorry, right. I didn't have to go into that.
Energetic connection. There was,
Yes.
Yeah.
There was something
mentor,
there.
whatever.
Exactly, but so we had the whole family, and because it's the Australian family, I'm not actually related to them, but the whole family had the example that my uncle was really successful. But when I was going and deciding whether to study, I had so many voices of it's going to be hard, it's going to be difficult, how are you going to do this, technology, all these sorts of things. And it was like, whoa, even my brain hasn't even caught up to that amount of anxiety that you're dumping on me. Like, just give us a second, before I even get to that point. So I definitely think, that there's a lot that we carry on. And then, I guess like that quote, we suffer a lot more in thought than we do in reality. And because the reality was, it was difficult, it was challenging. And of course, there's going to be those hardships, or not hardships, there's going to be those challenges. But you're not focused on those challenges when you're in the creative flow. You're not focused on those challenges when you're in the creative state.
The noise is non-existent. It's like there's no wow and flutter. There's no AM, FM radio playing in your head of nonsense. There's no ticker tape of, that's why some people are better able to, not because they're better, to tap into their gifts and talents early on, right? I'm sure you have friends that they went to the best schools. They just, everything they touch turned to gold, right? I'm sure I've had friends I'm a late bloomer, I'm if you believe in astrology, they told me that I'm going to be wealthy later in life, whatever. But when it comes to that is that people that are able to see the real, the racket, you know what I mean by racket, the joke that's being played on us every day by our brain, and we get caught up in it innocently. The ego, the negative self-talk, the anxiety, the overwhelm, and think that that's scripture and truth. Man, that's unfortunate, because 99% of all that is all noise. All of it. But we're not taught that way. Our parents, are living in a world of thought. Our school system's living in a world of thought. Our doctors, what the whole society is, but they also see what I'm pointing to. But the people that really get successful in life and fall in love and have the things they want early on, or even later on in life, finally see what I'm pointing to, is that they see this inner intelligence within them that's guiding them on this river of life, this inner GPS, that our default state. And I'm stealing this metaphor from what my coach, Angus Ross, who one of my favorite blokes out there. Hey, Angus. He's probably not listening, because shout out. He will listen when I put this recording on my Facebook page and Instagram. Anyways, he said our true north, right? Our true divinity of who we are. I'm not going to get in. I don't want to sound like Reverend Beckwith. I don't think if you know who Reverend Beckwith is, but all the religions, all the greatest prophets, Buddha, Muhammad, Jesus, whoever is your all-star favorite prophet or religious superstar, have all pointed to this. But what happens? it gets wrapped up in thought, and then and it's marketed. It's turned into, marketed and wrapped and packaged up for people to and it gets lost in minutia. But that's what happened.
Yes.
And even Tony Robbins, the famous coach, talks about this. He figured it out. And it's okay if we do forget. We all forget. But when we really have hope, and hope is a big piece of this, relaxing into hope and letting go of the controls when you're just so overwhelmed and so stressed out, even if you have kids to feed and a job to go to, you still can be anxious and scared at work, about to give a presentation in front of all your coworkers and your boss, and still do a great presentation. Because it's just thought. It's uncomfortable. It sucks. It feels horrible. We think it's real because it's horrible. But a lot of us do that anyways.
Yeah.
And there's so much beyond all that. And once people see beyond the noise, we need reminders. I need everybody needs reminders, because you can't escape thought. Thank God it's a gift, and it's also a curse when we use it wrong. But we can't escape it. And once we see we're never going to win the game, and I'm doing another quick story. Do you ever see the movie Liar Liar?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. Jim Carrey is a lawyer.
Carrey, yeah.
He's got this spell put on him that he can't tell a lie for a full day.
Yeah.
And he's a lawyer. That's like the worst thing you can do to a lawyer. He can't lie. So he's so like, he goes into the bathroom of the courthouse and he's kicking his own ass. Kicking my own ass. And he's like,
he was incredible.
Disheveled. Oh, that's and he's all bloody and gnarly. And this poor guy walks into the bathroom and Jim Carrey looks at him like a crazy person. And he's like, "What? I'm just kicking my own ass. Would you mind?" And I'm just doing that because another coach actually talked about that same movie. But it's so brilliant. It's such a great metaphor that I had to steal it for y'all. That's what we do to ourselves. We're the Jim Carrey character, not with a spell on us, so wrapped up in our own stuff and our own anxiety and what other people think about us and bills to pay. If you could just see that our brain's going to do what our brain's going to do, it loves you, but that's not the be-all, end-all of your existence. You don't have to meditate every day to see it. You just can sit quietly in your car, put a piece of music on. I don't know. Whatever. I always say to my clients, and I'm saying to you too,
happy place.
Look for a feel-good feeling.
Yeah, I love that.
Tell a joke, get present, and then see where it takes you. Because that's what it's all about. You don't have to be fancy schmancy, the yoga poses. I mean, that's what you like. I mean, my partner, who's also a photographer, she does portrait stuff similar to you do, but it's not her. It's like a side gig. This looks like you're a professional. She does it professionally, but not so much anymore. She uses an iPhone camera. Does that mean that because she doesn't have a Leica camera or fancy Nikon, does that mean she's not a good photographer? No. But people would look at her.
That's the minutia.
That's the minutia.
Yeah.
That's thought.
Yeah. Exactly. I created a course for like people to take photographs of their phone, because a lot of my clients, during lockdown, they wanted to take photographs of the products, wanting to take photographs, keep their content going while everyone was at home online. So I created that course and teaching people how to shoot with their phone. So definitely, I wanted to ask you one last question just to end.
Yes. We could talk for hours.
I know we could, but just before I ask where people can find you, I'd love to. I just wanted to ask, and I think you kind of you have pointed towards this, and I guess it is the feel-good feeling. But I wanted to ask, what does deciding your destiny mean to you?
What does deciding my destiny mean to me? Well, it's kind of what I've been sharing. That once we see that we are incredibly loving, and warm and a species of that's for me. I look at it as, I do all my best work when I'm quiet and not in my thinking. And when I'm in my thinking, I still do my best work because I see it's all thinking. But I think that when we can see that you're not going to win the game, you're not going to beat the system. That's why, and again, follow your own. I tell people, follow your own path when it comes to working on yourself. Do your own research. I don't tell people to do, go with God. But once you see, like, you don't need, there's nothing to fix. There's nothing broken. And I have one more metaphor. You ready?
Yeah.
I stole this from Michael Neal, who's a brilliant coach. We are diamonds covered in shit, lacquered in lipstick. Underneath that, and again, the shit and the lacquer is the mask, and under that is we are a diamond, and it's not some coaching positive terms. This is not some this is the truth, and I speak in very plain terms. Is that once we see that, and it's genuine, and we see it in those quiet moments, we then can see what the contrast is, right? And when we see what the contrast is, we see that that's okay too. There's nothing wrong, and that's beautiful. Again, I'm not saying you need to go right, and again, it doesn't mean that it takes away from our responsibilities in life. And it also doesn't take away from the fact there are consequences for actions, but we are not our behaviors either. We're not our thoughts. We're not our behaviors. And when we can see that we do have agency over thought and thinking, like if you look at thought and thinking like a buffet at a fancy hotel, most of us, when we go to a buffet, we don't, and maybe some of you do, I don't know, pick 10 pieces of chocolate cake, and 3 pieces, and 20 huge steaks. No, we have discernment. So you don't have to, you have discernment over thoughts. Just like a photographer has discernment of what you want to capture.
What moment to capture, yeah.
It's the same thing.
Yeah.
So that's really it's liberating. And if you can imagine that we have that discernment, then when we are caught up and our brain's going sideways, when we are just, overwhelmed in that moment, that having hope that we will calm ourselves without doing anything, and then we'll come back to new and fresh thought, is so liberating. Like, you don't have to do anything. And it's interesting. Someone asked me, what about medication for people that have really noisy brains, like stimulants, SSRIs, and I say that's wonderful because, medication is like a software update, right? It's just to calm the noise down, because it's a machine kind of thing, right? It's not who you are, but if the machine is really noisy and you're having issues with that, then there's nothing wrong with medication. But we get wrapped up in that too, and that and that stigma too. So, yeah. Exactly.
Well, where can people find you? Because I know I really want to find out more about your Fearless Now podcast. I'm really interested in that. And
yes, and you're coming on mine when you're ready or when you want to.
Awesome. Yeah, definitely. I'm excited.
Yeah, it's.
But where else can?
My
website is. Find more about you.
Sure. My website's samledconsulting.com. And you can also DM me on my Instagram page at Samled Consulting. It's pretty boring. Samled Consulting there, and then samledconsulting.com. My Facebook business page is very, very consistent. It's easy, so I'll forget. Samled Consulting, and I do offer a free kind of discovery call to see how I could be of service and help to people out there. And the Fearless Now podcast is on Spotify, Apple, or your favorite podcast platform. And my book, Fearless, will be out late fall, hopefully. I'm really excited about it. It's a story about something that happened to me about 18 years ago. But it's made me what I am today. And it's all about kind of me seeing like what thought and thinking is, and how to live a nicer life without doing a lot, because of people in sub-Saharan Africa that are living in poor, squalor conditions can find happiness and moments of happiness, or in war zones. I mean, we see it all the time. People are still playing soccer in the rubble, and they're still laughing, and they're still helping each other. Then we can do it when we're not when we're sitting in our apartment. So
yeah, it's our natural state of being. I love that. And guys, jump on that discovery call, because I think what you have to offer, and I think your whole energy, I vibe with it. So I'm definitely looking forward to connecting deeper further.
For sure.
Yeah, 100%, man. And I'm gonna check out your podcast on my way to the shoot today. I'm gonna check it out, and I'm gonna listen to it a little bit more. And yeah, I'd love to jump on.
Thank you. It's a labor of love, so enjoy it.
Awesome.
Well,
Thanks,
thank you,
Sam.
Tom.
I appreciate it.
My pleasure.
Thank you guys for joining us. And as always, remember, guys, decide your destiny. Cheers.